And the Independent National Electoral Commission says it's making efforts to ensure that certain categories of the nation's prisoners are granted access to vote for persons of their choice during elections. The Commission also says it has now prepared adequately for the November the 18th governorship election in Anambra State. Joining us now to discuss this is social commentator Ikenna Asomba. Ikenna is also a journalist. Thank you very much for joining us on TVC News. So how would you react now to this report that, prisoners will in 2019 be given, access to vote?
Well, it's a welcome development because if you look at the Nigerian Constitution, Section 36, subsection 5, guarantees anyone who is charged for criminal offenses the right to remain innocent until proven guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. So if you look at this announcement by the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, it's a welcome development. At least it guarantees prisoners the right to also join the Nigerian voting populace to participate in forthcoming elections. So the INEC chairman has said it is making preparations with the Controller General of Prisons. So in 2019, we expect that prisoners will also join to vote.
The INEC chairman said it's going to be certain categories of prisoners. It will not be, like a free-for-all for all prisoners, especially those who have been, convicted for very serious offenses. But then this development is coming 3 years after the Federal High Court ruled that all prisoners should be allowed to vote. Do you agree now that this window now should only be for certain prisoners and not people who have been convicted for heinous crimes?
Well, I think in Ghana, certain categories of prisoners are allowed to vote. But if a Federal High Court 3 years ago said all prisoners should be allowed to vote, and in Nigeria we have about 240 prison facilities, so that implies that INEC is going to create polling units in these 240 prison facilities across the states of the Federation. So for me, I think all prisoners should be given the opportunity and not just certain prisoners or inmates.
And what are the implications of this when you create polling units in prisons nationwide now? Are you also opening the doors now for politicians to come and woo prisoners, speak to them like they go around canvassing for votes ahead of the elections? Is that what will be the implications, one of the implications that is?
Of course, I think the prison officials or authorities would always have a way with the INEC, always have a way to see how this can go on, you understand? Because for me, I don't think that one is an inmate. Inmate doesn't mean such a person is totally condemned. Of course, if you look at it even from the Christian angle, for that one is an inmate doesn't mean such a person is totally condemned. There is always a second chance, you understand? So this inmate should also be seen as Nigerians. I think the problem we are having is that right from the colonial era, because modern prison in Nigeria started in 1861, that was during the colonial era. I think during the colonial era, inmates were not actually made to be reformed. The prison service system was not actually made to reform inmates, but to kind of gag Nigerians to ensure that those people probably trade between merchants and traders, the colonial merchants. So by the time you don't kowtow to whatever they want, such a person becomes an inmate, you understand? So that correctional tendency was just recently established, I think sometime in 1968, 1st of April, when the Native Authority was abolished. So the prison should be a correctional home, a correctional facility. So by the time you are correcting an inmate, that inmate should also have the opportunity. So if politicians go to woo some of these inmates, I don't think it's a bad idea.
All right. Of course, there's been outcry, nationwide about the need to bring urgent reforms across prisons, in prisons across the country.
Of course, even the president
Will
has
this
said
voting, when it finally takes off, will this also open up, the worries, open up the concerns, and bring some form of needed, sanity to our prison systems?
Oh, thank you very much. Of course, because if you look at it, just the National Bureau of Statistics just released the statistics of inmates in the Nigerian prison and gave it to be 68,686 as of 2016. And according to same statistics, the capacity of our prisons is around 50,000. So if you look at it, there is an overcrowding percentage of about 17,000. So what that means is that our prison facilities suffer from overcrowding, and these inmates, the programs are not really that effective for inmates. I mean the programs of correcting them, reforming them, and all that. So if politicians have the opportunity to visit these prisons during campaign, it means they are going to have a first-hand experience of what is indeed happening there. Okay. So I think it's a welcome development.
All right, Ikenna Asomba, they're going all out for prisoners to indeed be allowed to vote. Many thanks, Ikenna, for your thoughts.
It's a pleasure.
On TVC News.